talk about the plight of Ugandan refugees. So we are privileged to have Mr. Paul Olukushaba, the Program Coordinator, Lutheran World Federations Uganda. A very good afternoon and welcome to NTV at 1 today.
Good afternoon and good afternoon all our listeners.
All right, we just want to quickly dive into, we did see the directives of the 42 lockdown. How is that going to affect, or how is it affecting the refugee community?
Thank you very much. As you know, the lockdown does not affect a selected number of people or selected member of society. It cuts across the whole country. People movement is restricted, movement of aid workers restricted, business somehow is disrupted. The way we give services to the refugees is disrupted. Children cannot go to school. So the lockdown, basically, the way it affects Ugandans is the same way it affects refugees. The only difference is that refugees are limited in access to certain services. Their societies are a bit secluded because they live in settlements, but where they are is not mixed with the rest of the communities. So the differences between the lockdown, the effect on nationals and refugees, are only because they are not Ugandans and they have limited access to certain services. But it basically affects all people in Uganda the same way.
As a refugee aid organization, what are you currently doing to protect the refugee host communities and refugees during this pandemic?
As you know very well, the most important thing right now is risk communication so that everybody is aware of what to do and how to follow the SOPs as laid out by the Ministry of Health and the government, dot by dot. So one important thing we do is to make sure that there is a risk communication to all refugees so that they are aware of what to do. And then also sensitizing them that their laws in Uganda also affect them. So when the government gives directives, they affect everyone. So they have to observe all that. Then the same sensitization that is given to the rest of Ugandans as far as vaccination is concerned and the self-care is concerned is also extended to the refugees. The refugees, of course, within the settlements, they have limited access to health care. As you know, there are so many people in a settlement. The health facilities are few, health workers are few. They are equally affected like any other health worker in Uganda. So somehow we try as much as possible to make them aware the challenges we are facing, need extra vigilance from everyone, that when you see any signs, you report. If you see a strange person that you don't know, you should be able to report so that health workers can follow up.
About the interventions, we are looking at some of the refugees coming through using the porous borders that we have as they enter Uganda. What are some of the interventions that you think the government should be looking at and you as an organization should put in place to see that COVID-19 is limited within the refugee communities?
Thank you for that question. Refugees will continue to move into Uganda irrespective of the lockdown and the restrictions because they have limited choices. So we have to make sure that there is active screening, which we are already doing at some of the border points. But we also know that there are porous border points where there is no one watching. So what we do is to communicate to communities to be extra vigilant. So if they see new people coming in, or their colleagues who had crossed across the border to their communities and getting back, they immediately inform us and inform health workers or aid workers responsible for health so that they are quickly screened and isolated where necessary. Then we also communicate to all of them that moving anyhow poses a danger, not only to the refugees themselves, but to us, the aid workers, to the host communities, and the health workers who are supposed to take care of them. So the government should intensify border monitoring. It should support us also in extensive screening of those who are crossing. I know the government doesn't want people to keep crossing, but we know it is a reality they will continue crossing. But what we need is those who manage to cross back into Uganda, how do we make sure that they don't quickly mix with the rest of the community? And how do we isolate those who show signs or those who are confirmed to have the virus? How do we manage them? I have to say at this point that when schools are closed, the children, young people are redundant in the host communities and in the refugee communities. They are moving around. So we maintain extra vigilance so that these people can observe the SOPs and they can be part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem.
All right, now proper nutrition is one of the ways to contribute to the fight against COVID-19. As an organization, what are you doing currently to provide for proper nutrition for these refugees? Is there something you've put in place, a certain diet of sort?
We have been advised by the health workers and doctors that boosting the immune system way before you get the disease is the best way to start with in the first place. So throughout 2020, LWF made a choice to stay and deliver. And one of the interventions we were giving along all other sensitizations was backyard farming to ensure that people have access to cheap and easy to get vegetables and fruits. And once they have that access, the additional information is utilization. We continue to give them sensitization on how the food should be utilized so that their bodies are extra immune. That is what we are doing. But of course, we have special provisions for extremely vulnerable people and those with special needs who are provided food, not only for survival, but also for immunity, for boosting the immunity. But we know that this has, the lockdown has affected so many things, including markets and so on. Because they don't have enough land to plant, what we also do is to try as much as possible through partnerships to provide multi-purpose cash programming so that people can, those who are in extreme need can access cash, and then they use the cash appropriately. Once they have the information about proper nutrition, they are able to select the right foods, and then they can move on to prepare themselves, prepare their bodies, but also feed well when, in case they get the signs and symptoms or they are diagnosed with the virus.
All right,
so
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Paul Rikshaw, who's the program coordinator at Lutheran World Federations Uganda, joining us today.